Hello everyone. Today we are going to learn about class of service profiles in Inform Voice. Class of service profiles are used to enable permissions and enhancements for users. There are two types of permission. Address-based permissions, which applies to the phones and the stations, and user-based permissions, which applies to the users. In this video, we will learn when each of the permission is active. This screen shows the dialog box in which we define the different class of services and the permissions each one will enable. Mm. Um, we have a first kind of list of features that are allowed or not, depending on if we check the checkbox. Mm. Um, you will see the first one is an ability to initiate calls. Obviously, 911 calls are always enabled, but if this checkbox is unchecked, the station is unusable. Um, we can initiate outside calls or not, so the station becomes kind of station only. We can enable outside forwarding. We can enable call waiting tone when a second, third, fourth call comes into the station. We can control the caller ID that's being sent by the station on an outbound call based on a reverse lookup of the DID mapping list. We can also display the caller ID when the call is in call waiting mode. There is a video control. Um, if the device supports video, for example, the UC client plus a soft phone, or if we have a specific video phones on certain brands, we can enable the video. Um, there is an intercom receive item that allows the station to receive, accept intercom calls that's used in specific circumstances. And there are three items regarding recording. We can enable on-demand recording for the specific device that has this class of service assigned. And we can give the user playback recording capabilities, and also we can let the user know that he or she is being recorded with an auto record indication. Besides that, we can control the number of calls that a station or user can receive in terms of call waiting. And we can also control the permissions of outbound calls, either internal or external, what we usually know as toll restriction. Now let's see how the class of service works in the actual system. I do have a station here that I assign specifically with a specific class of service, which I will show you in a minute. The class of service I used for this station is called the other, which I disabled the ability to initiate outside calls on purpose. So basically, this is a station only device. So you can see if I check the station itself, which is this one over here, has the class of service other assigned. Now, this extension 2002 belongs to a user. I can check the user properties, or actually the station properties, and then I can check the user properties. And this user, in particular, Jeff Abrams, it has also a class of service. The class of service called employees, but this class of service allows outside call. Now, as you can see, the user is non-user centric. We'll see that there is a difference between user centric and non-user centric when it comes to a class of service profile. So let's see what happens in this case when the user tries to make an outbound call. So I will dial an external number and we see what's up. It didn't like it. Why? Because the station is not allowed to make outbound calls. So what if a user comes in and let's say finds this terminal in an aisle or in a meeting room, etc., and he or she wants to make an outbound call? Well, she can override that condition for one call. It's what we call the authorization code. We dial *99, and then let's say the extension number of the user that's going to make the call. Then I use star as a separator. Then I type a password, a star as a separator, and then I will type my outbound number. We are calling. So I can answer here. As you can see, the call is connected and I can hang up. Now, what happens next? Well, if I try to call again to the external number without using the authorization code, that's nice. So what happens? What's happening is that when I dial this authorization code, the class of service changes to the class of service assigned to that user 2001. So let's look at the user 2001. The user 2001 turns out to be Betty Williams. You can check here, this address is 2001. And this is the password I dialed when I specified the authorization code sequence. As you can see, Betty Williams belongs to the employee, so the system changes temporarily the class of service of the phone to the class of service of the user. This is what we call authorization code feature. Now let's see what happens with user-centric environment. Let's turn this user, who is the user that has the address 2002, and in certain way it's related to this phone I have here in the screen, and I will turn it into a user-centric user. Now little things will change. The forwarding tab will be added up, and obviously we need to consider if we have user groups. Yes, we have user groups, and we don't have user rights, but we don't care much about that in this precise moment. So, okay, so let's see what happens now. For now, my phone is still disabled. Okay. So now I will log in with Jeff Abrams. Okay, so Jeff Abrams is online. Jeff Abrams doesn't have an actual cell phone, so don't worry about what's being here shown on top. But so let's see if I can, which Jeff Abrams doesn't have. So now here's this number that is already in the call history. So I will try to dial it now. Well, it asked me, and then I make the call. Okay. Remember, a standard cell phone acts as a single line phone, so I need to answer it first. So, as you can see, when I'm logged into the UC client, now the class of service is the class of service of the user, no longer the class of service of the phone. This is why I can make a phone call. Now, let's see what happens with the employee class of service. Okay, so the employee class of service, you can see it over here. It has some restrictions. But let's say I'm gonna click on this icon here. So now the minus turned into a plus. If I minus turns into a plus, and I call from the station, I can make the call. If I turn it back, I cannot. So we can control the ability of the phone to make calls, so the class of service of the phone, through the use of the UC client. What's the purpose of all this? Well, normally if the user is connected to its UC client, it controls the terminal. So he or she is at the computer. Now, if the user goes away from the client, then we don't want anybody to make unauthorized phone calls from the terminal associated with that user. This is why the user has the ability to deauthorize the device. The other way to deauthorize the device is by changing a preference under the profiles here. If I click on this checkbox, always deauthorize my devices when I log out or exit, and let's say my device is authorized, let's confirm my device is authorized. Yes, it is. Now I will log out. And now let's see what happens when I try to dial from my phone. Now it became unauthorized. You can see we can control the class of service of the phone to become the class of service of the user and back, depending on the status of the authorization. Finally, if you happen to leave your post for a while and you don't, you forget to unauthorize your terminal when you leave, there is a way to do it automatically. Mm. You can see here this authorization expire duration in hours. Mm, allows you to automatically deactivate or deauthorize the device related to this user after this period of time. So it's set to 0 to when it's 0 is it's the feature is disabled, and if you set it to 1 to 8, the feature gets automatically enabled. Why up to 8 hours? Well, because normally you come to the office and you have an 8-hour shift if you are a regular salaried employee. And so after 8 hours, the system automatically deactivates the station. And you don't need to do anything particular with your UC client, even if you have the UC client set not to deauthorize the device automatically. This is a security measure. So now we learned about the address-based class of service, the user-based class of service, and when each one applies, and how can a user control the class of service of the terminal. With that, I thank you, and I see you in the next video.